My Jesus said, go teach the lost. My Jesus said, go teach the lost. My Jesus said, go teach the lost. We're doing what we're commanded. My Jesus said, go share his word. My Jesus said, go share his word. My Jesus said, go share his word. We're doing what we're commanded. Pulpit Times. Good afternoon to everyone, and welcome to Pulpit Times. And this afternoon, I want to engage in a study in just a few moments in the book of Daniel in chapter 3, where we see a resolve of three young men with the choice to bow or be burned. Bow or burn. But first, let's sing I Have Decided to Follow Jesus. 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 No turning back, no turning back. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. Though none go with me, I still will follow. No turning back, no turning back. My cross I'll carry till I see Jesus. My cross I'll carry till I see Jesus. My cross I'll carry till I see Jesus. No turning back, I'll follow him. Following Jesus is not always easy. Doing what's right is not always natural. It's not always going to come easy. That's why the song we just sang says, I have decided to follow Jesus. It's a commitment that you and I need to make every day. And this is a commitment that three men in the book of Daniel made in Daniel chapter 3. Have you ever felt pressure to do something? Like everybody is pointing at you and pointing at each other. Or you're at work and it's a busy day and you feel like you have 10 things to do. Well, some people crumble under that pressure. Some people succeed. And when you are being pressured to do something, it's easy to give in. But I want to introduce you to three men in the book of Daniel when pressure did not give in to the temptation to forsake God. And they're introduced to us in chapter 1 of Daniel. In chapter 1 of Daniel, we're introduced to King Nebuchadnezzar, and King Nebuchadnezzar had taken away captive people from Israel to Babylon. Among these captives were Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah. They were captives. Notice what it says here in Daniel 1, verse 3. Then the king commanded Ashpenaz, his chief eunuch, to bring some of the people of Israel, both of the royal family and of the nobility, youths without blemish, of good appearance, and skillful in all wisdom, endowed with knowledge, understanding, learning, and competent to stand in the king's palace and to teach them the literature and language of the Chaldeans. The king assigned them a daily portion of the food that the king ate and of the wine that he had to drink. They were to be educated for 3 years, and at the end of the time they were to stand before the king. Among these were Daniel, Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah of the tribe of Judah. And the chief of the eunuchs gave them names. Daniel he called Belteshazzar. Hananiah he called Shadrach. Mishael he called Meshach. And Azariah he called Abednego. So the names of these men that we know are not their original names. They were changed. I want you to notice a couple things about this text. Notice the traits of these men. These were young men, used the text says, without blemish. Now that doesn't mean they were perfect, but they were of good appearance and they had wisdom and they were endowed with knowledge and understanding and learning. And so they already had wisdom, and now they're being taught more. And what's even more so impressive is the end of verse 4. We notice that they were confident to stand in the king's palace. Now, notice these traits, and that these traits will be preparing them for what comes next. These are good men. These are good foundational men, and because of these traits, they will be prepared. They will be ready for what will happen to them later on in the book. In chapter 3, we get introduced to the prideful king. Actually, he's introduced in chapter 2, but in chapter 3, we pick up with something that King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of that time, did. Notice in chapter 3, verses 1 through 7. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold whose height was 60 cubits and its breadth 60 cubits. He set it up on the plain of Dura in the province of Babylon. Then King Nebuchadnezzar sent together the satraps, the prefects, and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the province to come to the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Then the satraps and prefects and the governors, the counselors, the treasurers, the justices, the magistrates, and all the officials of the provinces gathered for the dedication of the image that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. Notice this, everybody is there. He's calling together the satraps and the governors, the counselors from all over to admire this dedication, to admire the statue of himself. It was an image of gold. In verse 4, here's the instruction. And the herald proclaimed aloud, "You are commanded, O peoples, nations, and languages, that when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, you are to fall down and worship the golden image that King Nebuchadnezzar has set up. And whoever does not fall and worship shall immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Therefore, as soon as all the peoples heard the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, all the peoples, nations, and languages fell down and worshipped the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar set up. Talk about a prideful king who set up a gold image for himself. Nebuchadnezzar was so prideful that he made a high statue for himself, and he asked everybody to come worship it. Come worship me, he says. And if you don't, there was a consequence. Notice that he made a decree that everybody had to bow down to this statue. And so, and it was the herald that proclaimed and said, "This is a command." What a prideful king. Notice what Proverbs says. Proverbs 16:18. The punishment was the fiery furnace. If the king said, "Bow down," if you don't bow down, you will be thrown into the fiery furnace. Verse 6. What a prideful king. Notice what it says in Proverbs 16:18. Pride goes before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. Nebuchadnezzar was prideful. Nebuchadnezzar wanted everybody to come and see the statue and not only see it but bow down to it. He made a command and he made it so that this command was backed up by the punishment of the fiery furnace. Pride goes before fall. And Nebuchadnezzar did fall in the very next chapter. But notice this again. Whoever does not fall down in worship will immediately be cast into a burning fiery furnace. Now understand, at this dedication, Nebuchadnezzar had taken captive many Jews, it says in Daniel 1. And so it was likely that many Jews were there, and they had a choice. Were they going to be faithful to Jehovah, Yahweh God, as we see Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah were? Or were they going to bow down to save their skin? Notice what Jesus says in Matthew 13:20 and 21. As for what was sown on rocky ground, this is the one who hears the word and immediately receives it with joy. Yet he has no root in himself, but endures for a while, and when tribulation or persecution arises on account of the word, immediately he falls away. This would have been a trial for all the Jews there. What kind of root do they have? Are they the one that says in verse 21, immediately they fall away? Or will they stand up for the one Jehovah God? Because there was not just 3 Jews there. Well, like I said, the king had taken many captive. We just read in chapter 1. And so they're left with a choice. Are they going to be faithful or not? Let's see what they choose. Verse 8. Therefore, at the time, certain Chaldeans came forward and maliciously accused the Jews. They declared to King Nebuchadnezzar, O king, live forever. You, O king, have made a decree that every man who hears the sound of hornpipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music shall fall down and worship the golden image. And whoever does not fall down and worship shall be cast into a burning fiery furnace. There were certain Jews whom you appointed over the affairs of the province of Babylon, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you have set up. And so not everybody fell, just 3 men out of the whole uh, exiles there. They were Chaldeans, they were trying to prompt us, they were accusing the Jews, but we find 3 godly men. 3 godly men did not fall to peer pressure. The rest did. The rest bowed down. The rest bowed to the maligning of the Chaldeans. But these 3 men did not. These 3 men stood up because they did not bow down to the king's idol. First Peter chapter 2 and verses 11 through 13 tell us that we are to stand out. Notice this. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, a people for his own possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. Once you were not a people, but now you are God's people. Beloved, you have not received mercy, but now you have received mercy. Beloved, I urge you as sojourners and exiles to abstain from passions of the flesh which wage war against your soul. Keep your conduct among the Gentiles honorable, so that when they speak against you as evildoers, they may see your good deeds and glorify God on the day of visitation. So notice a couple of phrases that Peter says here. He says first, you are a chosen race, the human race. Talking to Christians, the letter of Peter is written to Christians who were in similar circumstances. Peter is writing to an audience that very well knew what persecution was like, just like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did. Just like they did. He says, you are a chosen race. God chose you. God chose Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah to stand up. You are a chosen race. You are a royal priesthood. You're set apart. You're part of something bigger. You are a holy nation. And look at this. You are a people of his own possession, just like Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego were. You are a chosen people for God's possession, not the world's. You belong to God. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego knew they were part of God's people, so therefore they belong to God. You and I belong to God too. We must act like it. And all of this is for a purpose. Notice the next phrase, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness and into his marvelous light. You've been chosen. You're a priesthood. You're a holy nation, a people for his own possession. Why? So you can glorify God. You can proclaim his greatness. Do you think that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego glorified God, proclaimed his greatness to others around him? Perhaps the other Jews that did bow. Do you think they were glad that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego did not bow? Yes, they were proclaiming what a big God they serve. Don't blend in. Be that chosen race. Be that royal priesthood. Be that holy nation. Proclaim the excellencies of God. He's called you out of darkness. Don't blend back into it. And so these three men stood up because they did not bow down, and it was evident. Everybody knew it. They did not serve the king's gods. Notice what their accusers say in verse 12. These men, O king, pay no attention to you. They do not serve your gods or worship the image that you have set up. Do people know that about you? That you serve God? I serve God. It is evident that I don't serve any other God. I serve God. Do people know that about you? They knew that about Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Joshua 24. Notice verses 14 and 15. They had a choice. Now therefore fear the Lord and serve him in sincerity and in faithfulness. Put away the gods that your fathers served beyond the river and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. If it is evil in your eyes to serve the Lord, choose this day whom you will serve, whether the gods that your fathers served in the region beyond the river, or the gods of the Ammonites in whose land you dwell. But as for me and my house, we will serve the Lord. Choose to serve God. Joshua told the people of Israel they had a choice. You need to choose, you and I need to choose to serve God at every opportunity, at every circumstances. Serve God. It was evident. It was evident to the king's guards. Is it evident to people around you that you serve God, that you don't serve pornography or sexual morality, or you don't serve homosexuality? Do you serve God? Is it evident in your life? It was evident to the king. Make it evident that you serve God. These men could have made any number of excuses uh, to justify bowing down to the king's statue. They could have said, well, it's just one time. Or, I really don't mean what I'm doing. Or well, God will understand the situation. Or maybe they could have said, well, God will forgive me. I don't really mean it. These men said, well, everybody's bowing. I have to bow. I'll look weird if I just stand there. But these men said, no such thing. These godly men, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, whichever one you prefer, said no. Notice what they said. They could have said, I have to. I don't want to die. They're going to kill me if I don't. Those were not excuses in their mind. Notice what they said. We pick up the reading in verse 13. Then Nebuchadnezzar, in furious rage, commanded that Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego be brought. So they brought these men before the king. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said to them, is it true, O Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that you do not serve my gods or worship the golden image that I have set up? Now, if you are ready when you hear the sound of the horn, pipe, lyre, trigon, harp, bagpipe, and every kind of music, to fall down and worship the image I have made, well and good. But if you do not, you shall immediately be cast into a burning furnace. And who is the God who will deliver you out of my hand? Pause quickly. Okay, sorry about that. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. If this be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us out of your hand, O king. But if not, Be it known to you, O king, that we will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you set up. What was the response? Nebuchadnezzar gave these three men one last chance to bow down and go with the crowd and just compromise their faith. They said, all right, maybe you didn't hear, or, or maybe you're ready now. They had that chance to forsake their God. They had that chance. Nebuchadnezzar said, I like you, okay? Maybe this was a mistake. No, they said it was not a mistake. They purposely. Daniel's not the only one in chapter 1 that purposed in his heart. All three of them had purpose to serve God. It is evident by the way they respond. Is it true? Notice that. Now, if you are ready, verse 15. Now, if you are ready to correct your mistake, in other words, well and good. But if you do not, you'll be delivered into the flame. There's no doubt about that. But given the chance to back out, notice what these men did. These men stood their ground. These men would not back down, shut up, head down, back. No, none of that. These men did not sit down, shut up, any of that. Notice what they said. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego answered and said to the king, O Nebuchadnezzar, we have no need to answer you in this matter. We already told you. You already know our answer. If this be so, if you do throw us into the fire, our God is able to deliver us from a burning fire furnace, and He will deliver us out of your hand. Even if He doesn't, O King, we don't regret it. We will not serve your gods or worship the golden image that you set up. That is faith. Even if God doesn't do what I want him to do, I still wouldn't have changed my mind. I still would have uh, rejected bowing down to you, O King. That takes resolve. That takes purpose to say no. My God is able to deliver me from you, but even if He doesn't, I'm not going to change my mind. I wouldn't even bow down if it means he wouldn't save me. I believe in God. I believe in Jesus, just like these men. Do you? Is your faith that strong? In the face of a burning furnace, in the middle of this section, Nebuchadnezzar stokes up the furnace, and it's heated 8 times hotter than what it usually is. And so much so that the guys that are dragging, that are stoking the fire fall and they die. And they're consumed by the fire, throwing these men in and they die. And look what happens. Look what the result was. we need to stand our ground. Before we look at the result, let's look at a couple of things. We need to stand our ground just like these men did. 1 Corinthians 15:58. Therefore, my beloved brethren, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that in the Lord your labor is not in vain. Ephesians chapter 6, 10 through 12. Finally, be strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against the authorities, against the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Stand your ground. Do not give the devil an inch. He doesn't deserve an inch. Hold fast to what is good. Romans 12:9. Let love be genuine, abhor what is evil. Hate it. It was evil to bow down. They hated it. They held fast to what is good. That's what you need to do. When faced with temptation, hate it. Hate temptation. Hold fast to what is good, and you will be rewarded. Let's check back in and see how that went. What was the result of their faith? Verse 26 through 30. Then Nebuchadnezzar came near to the door of the fire furnace. He declared, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God, come out and come here. Then Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego came out from the fire, and the satraps, the prefects, the governors, and the king's counselors gathered together and saw that the fire had not had any power over the bodies of those men. The hair of their heads was not singed, their cloaks were not harmed, and no smell of fire had come upon them. Nebuchadnezzar answered and said, Blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and delivered his servant who trusted in him, and set aside the king's commands and yielded up their bodies rather than serve and worship any god except their own. Therefore I make a decree. Any people, nation, or language that speaks anything against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be torn limb from limb, and their houses laid in ruins. For there is no other God who is able to rescue in this way. Then the king promoted Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. The result was giving God the glory. The result is that God spared them. The flame had no power over them. Verse 27 says, their hair wasn't singed. Hair wasn't singed. There was no small fire upon them. They were rescued, and the result was the glory of God. The king made a decree that everyone should worship God. And not only that, him that didn't worship God and speak evil against the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego was to be torn limb from limb. And so we see then that obedience to God ends in God's glory. The whole nation was better for this. And so what they did not bow, they did not burn, and they were saved. Revelation 2 and verse 10 uh, says, "Do not fear what you're about to suffer. The devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and for 10 days will have tribulation. Be faithful unto death, and I will give you the crown of life." These men were so faithful. They stand as a reminding example in Hebrews 11 of faith. Notice what it says here. Who through faith conquer kingdoms, enforce justice, obtain promises, stop the mouths of lions, quench the power of fire. These men stand as a resolving example for us today to not bend, not bow, but give God the glory. Don't bend to peer pressure. These men are our example, and they did that, but how about you? Have you bent? Have you bowed? Do you need to repent of that? Or perhaps you would like to learn more about becoming a Christian. We can do that too. Message myself or Levi Westfall, and we will love to study with you so you can have that confidence to, even in the face of death, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, say, I'm going to serve God. Let's pray. Father in heaven, thank you for this study. Thank you for your servants, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Thank you that they serve as an eternal example for us today, as total commitment, as faithfulness to you. Help us to be committed. Help us to love you enough to say no to temptation. We love you, Father. Help us to always love you. In Jesus' name, amen. Thank you all for joining us, and we will see you next time on Pulpit Times. God bless.